Hey everyone, today I want to talk to you about letting go of fear and paranoia. This video specifically is addressed to women, which are the majority of my subscribers, but also this is specifically going to be talking about the ways in which women live in fear and paranoia and how to get out of it. And you get out of it through reason. This is kind of how I see it, and I wanted to share it with you. Maybe it'll help you wake up and stop, living your life defensively. Because what I would like to see, and one of the big problems with the women's movement, with women in general, is that we are consistently on the defense. We are not living on the offense, especially in terms of feminist activism, lesbian activism. There's a whole attitude of just reacting to what men do. Like, we need to live our lives in this reactionary way of like, they do this, so now what do we do? There's a Sonia Johnson essay I'm going to leave in the low bar called Taking Our Eyes Off the Guys, where she discusses the very basic principle of the fact that the more you show up and do patriarchy with men, you do this battle, you do this back and forth of like, they're on the offense, we're on the defense, the worse the situation becomes for women. And what we really need to do is to step back and focus on what we're doing. So we need to do activism, we need to do organizing that is positive, not reactionary, not responding to what they're doing. We want to make them be on the defense. That's what you want to do ultimately. And women are so trained through fear to be consistently on the defense and to not be out there really advocating and doing things the way that we should. But that's what's needed. So anyway, link in the low bar to that essay. But I want to talk about women's fear specifically. Now, women have a lot of fear just drilled into them throughout their lives, and it's a big problem that we face. You get the message from your family to watch out for strangers. You get and from just everywhere, school, your indoctrination is like, stay away, watch out, danger is coming to you. Violence against women is sensationalized. Male violence against women is sensationalized in media. It's the subject of multiple thrillers. The serial killers become icons in a way, very famous for their crimes against women. And all of these scripts run in women's minds about the fact that, when they leave their house, they're in danger. I've had a lot of women write to me specifically asking me well, how do I get over my fear of going for a walk or something like that? I don't know what to tell you. Just go for a walk. You're at risk no matter what you do as a woman. Think about where you're walking. Be on guard, be alert, watch your back, but also don't stop living your life because you could be a victim of male violence. And then they win. Don't let them win. Because honestly, you're more likely to be assaulted by a man you know, and you're more likely to be assaulted in your home. So you're not safe sitting at home doing nothing. You're never safe as a woman in this culture. So it's an illusion. So the best thing you can do is just to let go of the fear, because there's nothing you can really do to protect yourself anyway. Ultimately, if some guy wants to get you, he probably will. That's just reality. Now, speaking as a woman online, and online for a while, with very controversial opinions that make men unhappy. Let's just say that. Not all men, obviously. I've got about 5 men who watch my videos and are, I guess, interested in this shit. But for the most part, my views are not popular with men as a group, generally speaking. I wonder why. I've gotten a lot of negative attention and feedback. That being said, the threats I've gotten have been minimal. I've gotten threats. Yes, I've gotten death threats. I've gotten rape threats. It's happened. That being said, it's less common than I think a lot of women think it is. And you deal with it when it happens. So you screen cap, you report, and then you move on with your life, because ultimately, most of the time, these threats are hollow. They have no way of getting in contact with you. They have no way of accessing you. They just want to, trigger that fear that they know you have as a woman in order to silence you. And I can't tell you the number of women I've seen who've had platforms who have disappeared because of shit like that. Well, I'm not going to. I did have a period of time where I didn't put my face in videos because I didn't like dealing. I did have some pretty creepy shit happening. And the thing about that was interesting, it was like grown men with wives and kids, threatening me as a young woman. But I mean, that's that's how it is. This idea that like a man who is respectable in society because he's reproduced and has like a woman he owns, it's a myth. It does not make them better. But anyway, so I've had times when I felt less willing to be vocal and visible, but I came to terms with that and just decided that it wasn't worth it to live that way or to do videos that way. I enjoy being on camera. I think there's something that's added when you can see my face, see my intent, read my aura. I think it adds a presence. I also think it gives weight to what I'm saying. So as far as I'm concerned, it's very important to be visible. I also decided that visibility was important to me, period. So that's been a thing that I've embraced entirely. So yeah, just to break that down, logically speaking, you aren't safe no matter what you do. So you might as well live authentically and do what you want with your life. I mean, because these are your options. You can live in fear and not act and not be present and not like actually engage with the world like a free individual with your own will. You can live a half life. You can be sleepwalking, or you can take your chances and be yourself and be real and be authentic in the world. Those are your options. So I don't want to fucking live a half life. There's no point to it. I'd rather be dead. So that's my choice that I made. And I think that's a choice you should make as well. Because honestly, it's what's best for women overall. We're never going to get anywhere if we're still living in that mindset of fear. So yeah, definitely read the essay in the low bar. But another thing I want to say is that a lot of women are also paranoid about what will happen if they're outed as being a like transphobe or a TERF or a bigot. Well, here's the thing. The more of you that come forward, the easier it is for everyone. Because the reality is, a ton of women who don't speak publicly about this issue are speaking privately about it. They do agree with us. And it's unfair to put the weight of, that just on a few individual women, because honestly, I would say the majority of women agree with this analysis of just that, our biology is important to our identities as women and our experiences. So yeah, but also, you're letting fear dictate your actions. You are being on the defense. You are being weak. You want to hit your enemy when they're not looking. You want to put them on the defense. So why on earth are you still playing this hyper feminine game of like coaching everything in coded language and, not being public? I mean, it affects women. It impacts women. The fact that, so many agree but won't say anything. And I've been incredibly annoyed with like the fact that So many in the lesbian community are TERFs, supposedly, or they agree, they don't want to sleep with men who identify as women. They don't want these men in women's spaces. They definitely don't want these men in lesbian spaces, but they also don't think it's right that these men are taking resources from vulnerable women. But they won't say anything. They won't do anything. They let our institutions falter. They attack women who speak out because they don't say it right or nicely. I mean, that's another thing to get over as women, too. This idea that we are responsible for the emotional, you know, uh, the emotional responses of others. Women take on way too much responsibility for other people's feelings. You aren't responsible for anyone's feelings but your own. And women have this real tendency to think that if you aren't performing that, if you're not doing that, that you're a bad person, that you're fucked up, not a good woman, like misogynistic if you don't do it for other women. Like all of this stuff is your conditioning. All of this stuff is things that keep you in fear mode, keep you consistently not speaking your truth, not advocating what is needed in the world, and not living your best life. So ultimately, you can do that if you choose. Everything is up to you, but I think it's better to let that stuff go. So stop being paranoid. Your paranoia feeds other women as well. Like women's fears feed one another. So they'll get to talking and like you'll see like that they all shut each other down. We have a responsibility to build each other up and encourage each other, not shut each other down, not stop each other from, making strides, changing things, doing things, being active. That's a real problem. It breeds complacency. Fear breeds complacency. And then where do you end up? You end up with a situation that is devastatingly bad for women. We can't do that. We have a responsibility to not do that. So I hope I've given you some stuff to think about. Don't live in fear. Don't let fear rule you. Fear is something meant to control you, but it ultimately doesn't serve you. There's a time and a place for it, I suppose, but, letting it rule your life and stop you from taking action is the worst thing you can do for yourself, just as an individual. And of course, we all have different fears that we have to get over. But ultimately, the number one thing you need to get over is your fear of what men are going to do. What have they done historically? They've killed shit tons of women historically. Yeah, that could happen. It happens every day. Women are killed for being women. That's the reality of living in patriarchy. So what do you do with that knowledge? I think you live your best life. I think you take your chances. I think you recognize that it doesn't matter what you do. Someone's going to have a problem with you. And you deal with it like an adult. I think another thing that I will mention before I go, a big problem that we're facing just culturally is the number of adults who are not emotionally mature. They seek validation from someone outside of themselves. They are unwilling to accept the fact that others disagree with them. They are unwilling to just deal with things appropriately and not put their emotional baggage onto other people. And that, of course, just triggers the ultra feminine socialization, which is that I, as a woman, am responsible for everyone else's emotional comfort. Break that cycle. Do you want girls growing up now and in the future to have to do that? Do you really? No, then stop doing it yourself. Recognize it and break the cycle. And you do it through being logical about the reality you're in. So, anyway, things are bad. But when you accept how bad things are, you can make your choices. So I hope I've given you enough to think about with this video. I'll see you later this week. Peace.